Hello, this is a presentation and demonstration of a specific topic related to the migration of an EAE system on OS 2200 to AB Suite. And that topic is retaining the database column layout. Now, when you deploy a new version of your product that involves inserting new columns into a table, if those columns need to be rearranged, then the physical table data will need to be reorganized, involving an unload of all data and a reload of the data. Now, with a heavily populated table, that can take a significant amount of time. EAE and AB Suite have a mechanism whereby you can add new columns without rearranging the existing column layout. And that means that the physical table reorganization is not required. They essentially do that by adding new columns to the end of the sequence of columns and retaining the column order from one build to the next. Now, the way these mechanisms work internally within EAE and AB Suite is somewhat different. So in this presentation, I'm going to describe how those mechanisms work in both EAE and AB Suite, and also do a demonstration of the specific steps to migrate the column order information from EAE to AB Suite. Now, the standard layout for database tables is for the key columns to come first, and then the remaining columns are arranged in alphabetic order. And all of those columns are declared as not null. Now, in subsequent builds, when you add new columns, they are added at the end of the column order as null columns. And this means that the physical data for the table does not need to be rearranged or reorganized at all. The table definition, the column definition for the table is updated, but the physical data does not need to be touched. Now, this non-standard column order needs to be remembered from one build to the next. In EAE, this information is stored within previous configurations. In AB Suite, this information is retained in a new file called RDMS layout. I'd like to do a quick demonstration of the migration of an OS 2200 EAE system to AB Suite. And this EAE system has a table which has a non-standard column layout. So this iSpec here, cust, initially had a handful of fields, and on a subsequent build, a couple of fields were added. This view here shows the original database schema definition in the RDML $$ file, and this is the definition for the cust table. We can see the columns here, the ID column, the key column, and all of the other columns are then arranged in alphabetical order, and they're declared as not null. Now, this is the schema definition in the RDML $$ file from a subsequent build after two fields have been added, field email and text file num. So here we can see all of the original columns are still in their standard order, and then email and text file num are added at the end. And they're also not declared as not null. The non-standard column layout of the cust table is recorded within the EAE environment in a previous configuration. So here we're looking at the system directory. Under our system name, we can see the previous configurations from the different builds here, and that information is stored within that internally. We can't see it through the user interface, but the information is held internally within that previous configuration. If I extract my complete model, including previous configurations, to an MDL file, I can view that in a text editor and I can see that column order information. For example, here it is. It's a type 69 record for the cust iSpec. Now, the first section is a comma-separated list of the columns that have been added after the initial build. Then there's a single space, and then we have a comma-separated list of the fields that were originally in the table on the first build. Okay, so now we know how EAE keeps track of column order. Let's now talk about how AB Suite does this. Now, AB Suite doesn't have the concept of previous configurations in the model, so we have a new mechanism to do this. Now, in AB Suite, we generate a new file which contains a definition of the column order for all tables, and this gets uploaded and stored with the actual target runtime system on the OS 2200 host. Now, here I have a view through CIFS of our OS 2200 host, and we're looking at the system folder for one of the systems called rpseg1. And the file I'm talking about is this one here called RDMS layout. So let's have a quick look at this. This is a simple text file. So let's look at this in a text editor. So as you can see here, each line represents a table and shows us the column order within that table. So here we have the cust table, an equals sign, and then we have a comma separated list of column names in the correct order. Now, you'll also notice that we have a semicolon in this list. All of the columns up to the semicolon are the columns that are in the standard layout. So these were the columns that existed when the table was first created. All of the columns after the semicolon are the columns that have been added since that time. The very first time you generate a system to the OS 2200 host, when you create it for the first time, this file will be generated for the first time and all columns will be in standard layout, like this one, for example. Then this file is uploaded and stored with that target host system. And from that point on, it is downloaded at the start of a build, then used in the generation of the database schema, and then uploaded. Let's just have a look at a build log to see that happening. Here is a build log for a subsequent build. So we can see the build starts. We log into the server, shares version numbers, and then the first thing it does is that it downloads the current RDMS layout file from the host. So now on the build client, we now have a record of the current column layout for all the tables in the host. One of the first files that gets generated is the physical DB schema. And so that gets generated, and then a new RDMS layout file is produced with the new column layout, and then that gets uploaded and stored on the host, and so on for subsequent builds. Okay, so let's now actually do a migration. Now we're going to start by migrating our model to the AB Suite development environment. So we need to select our business segment and we need to extract. Now it has to be a full extract. Now here we must select all system options and we must make sure that this model file includes the previous configuration that represents the most recent build. Okay, so we'll go ahead and do that extract. The next step is to take that EAE MDL file and import it into the AB Suite system to create a new AB Suite model. So let's do that now. We'll start the import utility into the name of our new model and select that MDL file. And just look at some of the settings. We want to import this as a migration database. So let's start the import process now. So I'm going to fast forward to the end of this import and we'll then have a look at the results. Okay, so the import is completed. So we now have a fully defined AB Suite model. But as well as that, we've got another file that has been produced. Let's have a look at that now. So here we're looking at the folder from which we imported our EAE MDL file. So here's the file that we imported. We have a log file here from the import process, but we also have this file here. Now this file is an RDMS col layout definition file. So this is actually a version of our RDMS layout file that we're going to use in the AB Suite environment. There'll be one of these files created for every generate set that was in our MDL file. And the naming of this file is, we have system name, generate set name, and segment name with RDMS col-layout.def. So let's have a look at this file. Now it's just a simple text file. Each line represents a table and contains information about all of the columns and the column order. So here we have our record for our iSpec cust. And first of all, we have a comma-separated list of all the initial columns up to the semicolon. So they were our initial columns originally, and past the semicolon, we have a comma-separated list of all the columns that have been added and will be generated as null columns in the database schema. Now, this file will become our initial RDMS layout file in the AB Suite environment and ensures that the first build from AB Suite will pick up the column order that has been migrated across from EAE. The next step is to actually move my EAE system from the EAE environment to the new ABS or AB Suite environment. On this OS 2200 machine, our AB Suite environment has been set up under the name ABS 8R0, and I'm going to run the configure utility. And here we're going to say upgrade to this environment and put in the name of the system. And let the configure continue. Now that we've completed the configure, the last step is to do a complete rebuild of the AB Suite system over the top of the migrated EAE system. But before we do that, in order for that first build from AB Suite to pick up the existing column order, we need to copy the RDMS layout file into position in the system folder of that system. And this is the file that was created during the import of the model, this file here. So we're going to start by renaming this file as RDMS layout. And now I'm going to copy that onto my OS 2200 host. So here is my CIFS view of my system folder for the system that we've just migrated. I'm going to paste that RDMS layout file into this folder. And now that file is in position, we're ready to do our AB Suite build. So before I start the build, I make sure all of the configuration properties have been defined appropriately for the AB Suite environment, such as the environment name property for one. And now I'm ready to start the rebuild. And now we'll let the rebuild carry on. I'll fast forward now to the end, and then we'll have a look back over the build log. So our build has now been completed, and we can see here that the build was successful. So let's just have a quick look back through the build log. Let's go right back to the top of the build log. And after logging on to the OS 2200, we can see that we've successfully downloaded the RDMS layout file. And that has been used during the generation of the physical DB schema, and the new version of that has been successfully uploaded to the host. So now, as a final verification that we've successfully migrated the non-standard column definition, column layout to AB Suite on the first build, let's check the generated RDML file from the first build in AB Suite. And we can see here the cust table, and this looks correct. We've got all of the columns in the correct order, and the two additional null columns are still on the end in the same layout. So we've successfully generated the correct column layout, and we've avoided a database reorg on the first build from AB Suite. Now, it's also worth knowing that if we had failed to copy the migrated RDMS layout file to the correct location on the host, then the build would have failed right at the start when it tried to find the RDMS layout file. If it didn't find a file there, then it would be an error. It needs that file for any build over the top of an existing system. It needs that file to be present so it knows that the column layout has been correctly defined. So that's the end of this demonstration to show how you can migrate an EAE system to AB Suite and retain a non-standard column layout and not have a reorg on the first build from AB Suite.